Hey, this is Mark, and you're welcome to AUTOSAYS. Imagine walking down a street where every corner feels like a time machine that somehow refused to break, where engines older than your grandparents growl like they were built yesterday, and where a nation kept its wheels turning even when the world expected it to stop. Welcome to Cuba, a place where 1950s American cars aren't museum pieces, but daily life. And before we dive into this unbelievable story of survival, hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to discover will completely change the way you look at the automotive world. Picture this: a bright turquoise Chevy Bel Air rumbles past you, not as a restored luxury collectible, but as an everyday taxi, carrying families, workers, and tourists. Its engine, a Frankenstein mix of Soviet parts, homemade components, and maybe a little prayer. You'd think these cars survived because Cubans love nostalgia, but the truth digs deeper into money, politics, scarcity, and a kind of creativity that would make even the biggest car companies sweat. When the US embargo hit in the early 1960s, Cuba was suddenly locked out of spare parts, tools, technologies, basically everything a normal car needs to stay alive. Most countries would have given up, scrapped their fleets, and moved on. But Cuba? Nah. This island decided to fight back with pure stubbornness, engineering genius, and a culture that refused to let these machines die. And here's where things get interesting. Keeping a 1950s classic running for more than 70 years isn't just cool, it's one of the greatest financial miracles in automotive history. Think about it. These cars became long-term investments, not expenses. Instead of replacing vehicles every decade, like we do in the US, Cubans turned each car into a multi-generational asset, something passed down like a family business. Some of these Chevys and Dodges have earned more money as taxis, rentals, and tourism magnets than their original selling price multiplied many times. That's like buying a $3,000 car in 1955 and watching it generate the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars over decades. And the deeper you go, the crazier the story gets. Mechanics became surgeons. Broken carburetor? They rebuild it with hand-filed metal pieces. No gasket? They make one from shoe rubber. Missing gear? They carve it from scrap steel or repurpose a tractor part. I mean, seriously, who looks at a Soviet tractor and says, yeah, that could fit into my '57 Plymouth? Only in Cuba. And while watching this ingenuity is thrilling, the real emotional punch lands when you realize these cars are more than machines. They're anchors of identity. Families have names for them. Kids grow up learning to fix them before they can even legally drive. The car isn't a vehicle, it's a member of the household, one that has seen revolutions, hurricanes, economic collapses, and still rolls forward like nothing can break it. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. As Cuba opened more to tourism in the 1990s and 2000s, these old classics suddenly became gold mines. Tourists didn't want modern cars. They wanted the pink Cadillac, the chrome smile of a Buick, the open-air roar of a V8 that somehow still breathes life after 70 years. Prices skyrocketed. Owners became entrepreneurs. A car that was barely surviving suddenly became a luxury ride, charging premium rates. And yet, behind the glamour, there's tension. These cars are priceless, sure, but they're fragile. Most run on engines swapped from Korean diesels or patched together from mismatched parts. Some owners drive with constant fear. One breakdown, one failure, one missing component, and the financial lifeline of their family could disappear. It's emotional, intense, and real. And there's a twist hovering under the hood. Modern cars are slowly entering Cuba, which raises the question, what happens when these old legends can no longer compete? Will they vanish? Will no generations choose convenience over heritage? Or will these classics rise again as protected cultural icons, the same way Japan protects its ancient temples, or Italy guards its Renaissance artworks? And here's the kicker. Economists argue that Cuba's old cars represent one of the most powerful examples of financial resilience in the entire automotive world. Imagine running a national transportation system using machines from the Eisenhower era, yet still making it profitable. That's not luck. That's survival engineering on a level we rarely see. And here's something wild. The global restoration world is now studying Cuban mechanics to learn how to repair parts that factories stopped making half a century ago. What was once seen as a limitation has become a skill, an asset that people around the globe now respect. At this point, you might wonder why Cubans didn't just import new cars from somewhere else. But that's the part of the story people miss. Even when Cuba could get modern vehicles from countries like Russia, China, or Europe, the cost was too high compared to the income of the average citizen. Owning a new car wasn't just expensive, it was nearly impossible. So people held on to what they had. And in doing so, they accidentally preserved the world's largest living museum of mid-century American automotive culture. These cars became symbols of defiance, of creativity, of we will not stop moving no matter what. And honestly, there's something inspiring, even heroic in that. But before we wrap this journey, here's the cliffhanger that keeps car historians and economists up at night. What happens when the last original part finally fails? What happens when time wins? Will Cuba reinvent again, keeping these cars alive with electric motors, 3D printed components, or homemade fuel? Or will the streets of Havana lose their soul, replaced by silent modern vehicles that lack the charm and heart of the classics? Nobody knows yet. And maybe that uncertainty is what makes this story so thrilling. Because when you watch a '54 Chevy glide by along the Malecon, you're not just seeing a car. You're seeing survival, culture, family, and finance all welded into one roaring engine. And that's why Cuba Automotive World is more than a tourist attraction. It's a living lesson in resilience, innovation, and the unbreakable bond between humans and machines. If you enjoyed this journey into the heart of Cuba's rolling time capsules, hit that like button, subscribe, and buckle up, because there are more stories coming that will change the way you think about cars forever.